and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. Okay, I want to dive into this first one, that article that I've come across out of thelibertarianrepublic.com. And, you know, being a gun owner myself, someone that grew up, you know, very, very young, handling firearms, and never having an accident or having to use it for defense, and seeing every time we have any type of, whether you think it's a false flag or what, every time we have any type of incidents that goes across the mainstream media, it's always being used for propaganda. It's always being grandstanded on. And they use these type of situations as an excuse. They get a few people to go along with it. They blast those people across the TV. Make you know, most people feel like, well, there's a large amount of people. Well, there might be in certain areas. I'm sure you go out to California, we've seen Mark Dice's videos. But surprisingly, there's also a large libertarian presence out in California. Maybe not in his area, but this article here from the Libertarian Republic: Obama to enact gun control through executive order. And this was put out yesterday. President Obama is preparing to enact new gun control measures through executive order. The White House has confirmed. Press Secretary Josh Earnest addressed reporters on Monday, noting gun control is a high priority. And, quote, will continue to be until we start to see more progress on this issue in this town, meaning progress to their ideology, not actual facts. I could tell you that they are not stumped. They're continue to review the law that's on the books and continue to consult with legal authorities, but also others who may have ideas about what steps can be taken to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. No, out of everybody's hands. The announcement comes as Hillary Clinton unveils part of her own strategy for gun control, including extended background checks for gun sales and holding manufacturers accountable for negligence. Clinton also hinted she would utilize executive action if elected to the presidency. Speaking to a group of students at Florida's Broward College, Clinton said, "We took them on in the 90s. We're going to take them on again, and I need your help to do that." The latest push to introduce gun control comes after 9 people were shot and killed at Umpqua Community College in Oregon last week. Proponents say new measures will prevent criminals and the mentally ill from obtaining guns, while critics blast the move as a violation of the Second Amendment. Ernest also blamed the National Rifle Association for repeatedly blocking Congress's attempts to take action on the gun show loophole that allows criminals to purchase weapons in the first place. Gun show loophole is not usually how criminals get guns. They just find other criminals that just happen not to be caught yet, that they don't have a rap sheet that will pop up in a background check, and they just get them to buy them for them. And matter of fact, we have a lawsuit going on. Hillary Clinton talked about gun manufacturers being accountable for someone else's negligence. Because it's not the gun manufacturers that are the ones that are making the choice to use the gun for a unlawful in the natural law or God's law, offensively, even though government gets away with using offensive steps on the citizenry. And, we can get into that some more. But we have a case going right now where we have two cops that want to have filed and are in court right now trying to sue the gun manufacturer for a criminal shooting them with a gun. Well, you have to understand that opens up a big can of worms when it comes to any gun manufacturers. It would be real easy for them to go, well, I guess we're only making them for government contracts. But kind of back to the Second Amendment thing. What would the actual way to do a gun grab, create a gun-free America? Well, Reason put out an article and a clip to go with it. How to create a gun-free America in 5 easy steps. And it's kind of a satire in a way, but it's actually the truth. And it points out some issues mainstream and these gun grabbers don't want to bring up. They like kind of going after ammo or the extended clips, and then once they get that, then they'll start going after the grandfathered stuff because, well, we can't have that either. So people that might have had clips for the whole time they've owned a gun will also have no clips for their gun that are legal. Let's go ahead and dive into this clip real quick. And again, this is from Reason.com. You can also find it Reason TV on YouTube.
Life hack: a gun-free America in 5 easy steps. For a gun-free America, the first thing you'll need is 2/3 of Congress. So elect a minimum of 67 senators and 290 representatives who are on your side. Then have them vote to propose an amendment to the Constitution which repeals Second Amendment gun rights for all Americans. Then convince the legislators of 38 states to ratify that amendment. Congratulations! The Second Amendment is now history. At this point, you've done absolutely nothing to decrease gun violence. All you've done is remove the barrier for Congress to legally act. You need to enact common sense gun reform. You can try to do what Australia did and ban all guns. That's not at all what they did, but whatever, fuck it. Go big or go home, right? Get that law passed by Congress and signed by the president. Great! The law is passed and guns are now illegal. The only thing left to do is Enforce the law. Guns don't just disappear because you passed a law. You need to confiscate over 350 million guns scattered among over 330 million Americans. Sure, you can try a buyback program like Australia, but like Australia, that will still leave behind anywhere from 60 to 80% of privately owned firearms. The rest of them, you have to take. You'll need the police, the FBI, the ATF, the National Guard, all known for their nuanced approach to potentially dangerous situations, to go door to door through 3.8 million square miles of this country and take them by force from thousands, if not millions, of well-armed individuals, many of whom would rather start a civil war than acquiesce. So inevitably, gun violence, which is currently at a historic low, will skyrocket. But that is how you get a gun-free America in 5 easy steps.
Reason.com, Reason TV on YouTube. And right there's the part at the end that no one wants to admit. You start going after Americans' guns. You know, what was it? 350,000 or how much was that? I can't remember right offhand now. I want to say it's 350 million guns and 330 million. Okay, yeah, it's 350 million guns scattered among 330 million Americans. And that's what they know of. So you go after the guns, and what happens? Start a civil war. Now, is that what they want? That's another topic that's brought up. Are these people really insane enough, or will they do what they normally do? Hillary Clinton, she's going after them, she says, if she gets in office using an executive order. Will they do, more, we're going to limit your clip capacity, or are they really going to take it even to a larger step because they've seen what happened once that got repealed? I think they would take it to a further step where they would try to basically outlaw what they consider assault rifles, basically rifles that look scary. I just don't see that happening. And there was a guy on TV that was at an interview, and he's known for being pretty boisterous when he hits mainstream media, and you might know him, Alex Jones, and he kind of predicted what would happen if you try to take our guns. And let me find that clip here.
We did it as a way to bring attention to the fact that we have all of these foreigners and the Russian government, the official Chinese government. Mao said political power goes out of the barrel of a gun. He killed about 80 million people because he's the only guy that had the guns. So we did it to point out that this is globalism, and the mega banks that control the planet and brag that they've taken over in Bloomberg, AP, Reuters, you name it, brag that they're going to get our guns as well. They've taken everybody's guns but the Swiss and the American people. And when they get our guns, they can have their world tyranny while the government buys 1.6 billion bullets, armored vehicles, tanks, helicopters, Predator drones, armed, now in U.S. skies, being used to arrest people in North Dakota. The Second Amendment isn't there for duck hunting. It's there to protect us from tyrannical government and street thugs. Take the women in India. Your piece earlier on CNN I was watching during Anderson Cooper's show didn't tell you that the women of India have signed giant petitions to get firearms because the police can't and won't protect them. The answer is, hey, wait a minute. I have FBI crime statistics that come out a year late, 2011. 20+% crime drop in the last 9 years. Real violent crime, because more guns means less crime. Britain took the guns 15, 16 years ago, tripling of your overall violent crime. True, we have a higher gun violence level, but overall muggings, stabbings, deaths, those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Pierce, didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? And that's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
Now, a lot of people might think, oh, it's Alex Rose, he's an extremist, but it's true. This is what a lot of the deeply entrenched in American culture is around, is the ability to defend yourself, to hunt, to, go out and blow something up if you felt like it and you got the property and a safe place to do it. American culture, maybe not in the big cities, of course. There's a lot of gun restrictions in a lot of bigger cities, even in maybe a state that's more gun-friendly, which luckily a lot of states have passed laws to restrict the cities from impending, I can't even speak today, but stopping, lawful gun owners from practicing their Second Amendment rights. And I don't know what type of executive action they're going to try to push. But I know this, that it does not stop crime. If anything, it increases crime, increases the corruption of government because it stands in the way, guns in citizens' hands stand in the way of tyrants getting what they want. And one example of that is the Bundy Ranch. And people will, talk a lot of crap about the Oath Keepers and militia. But what they don't realize is when, government starts really coming after people, these are the only people willing to put themselves directly in that line of fire. They've backed up. They've stood in front of between Ferguson protesters and law enforcement with their backs towards the protesters. We see that groups like that have been able to successfully stand up against the federal government. Now, there is one issue I have with it. I don't like to see violence. So I don't want the Civil War to break out. What I would like is government to stop, impeding on people's rights where they create these situations that become very volatile and they can't get that through their skull. Look at how much politicians get away with, how much they profit off of this country through corruption most of the time, or just writing themselves out of laws and giving themselves advantages over others. They've gotten so greedy that they're willing to keep pushing those boundaries to the point where they do need to take people's guns, because the corruption is something that is getting so extreme that they can't hide. They feel that they need to take the guns to keep from being overthrown. I really truly think that's what they feel. And there people will, a lot of libertarians will complain about the Tea Party, which I complain about the Tea Party too. They're kind of halfway libertarian type people, so you try to educate them on maybe the flaws, which a lot of us went through. I was a big constitutionalist type Tea Partier back before I started this broadcast or anything, but it was how I was introduced to Ron Paul, and it really grew from there. But one thing that a lot of the Tea Party pushes are steps towards more liberty in a peaceful manner. But not all of the Tea Partyists are actual Tea Partyists, of course. It's been very, very corrupted. I think one of the closest Tea Partyists that is really in the public eye right now would be Rand Paul. But again, I've said multiple times that I think that he's not libertarian enough, and other people have called him out on this, saying this is where his campaign is losing. That I think it was, I want to say it was Lou Rockwell, don't quote me on that, but had an article talking about getting back towards the libertarian side of himself, the values that he knows to be true. Well, I think that we have to attempt to do it in the peaceful manner. And, if your life is in danger, I have never, thought bad of anybody to protect themselves against danger to their own lives. Of course, in certain cases, because certain people are in certain positions that are arbitrary and falsely given to them, that makes it even harder. Because basically, people have been given this assumption that they have rights that the everyday citizen doesn't have, and that they're immune to prosecution against that. But we're starting to see a change in that in our culture. A lot of it thanks to groups like Cop Block and Cop Watch and Peaceful Streets Project, Filming the Police, all these other groups that are out there. A lot of change has been happening, but we've also seen a lot of backlash from that too, where now law enforcement is starting to see the blowback that happens when their corruption is out there for all to see. Okay, we're going to move along a little bit here. Just give me a second. Okay, actually, I'm going to stay on topic, here's the Ron Paul Liberty Report, gun violence, more control needed. I'll cover this other one I really, really want to get into a little bit later. That way I can just go ahead and keep on the gun control topic. But the other one I'll play here probably in the second hour is Trans-Pacific Partnership clip, and we'll get into that. But let's go ahead and play this Ron Paul Liberty Report, gun violence, more control needed, ?
You have
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Daniel McAdams with me today. Daniel, good to see you.
Happy Monday, Dr. Paul.
There we go. I want to talk about a couple things going on, and they involve guns. It looks like a lot of people have a lot of guns, and a lot of bad things happen. This past week, we had the Umpqua school shooting. 10 people were killed. A horrendous, incident, and everybody should be outraged by it. But there were also 22 killed with some bombing in Afghanistan. And the president has reacted to both of these, which he surely should. But the attitude was quite a bit different. And first on this community college killing that went on, this was one individual who obviously was unstable. At least they didn't claim terrorism. They didn't say that. They knew somebody was unhinged and went in and killed people, and it was an utter tragedy. But the president took it upon himself to really make a big point of this, and which is okay. But his point was we have to politicize guns. His whole point was that there are too many law-abiding citizens owning guns, and for some reason there was a connection to that, to some nut getting hold of guns. Exactly how, we don't know. We don't know what kind of medications this individual was taking, so there's a lot of unknowns yet. But I guess you were aware of this incident as well as the other one, but what have your thoughts been about this school shooting?
Yeah, it's interesting that, and I don't, I don't know if it's the case here, but in most of these shootings that we've seen so far, as you sort of suggested earlier, this kind of psychotropic drug medication has been involved. It may well come out that it was involved with this fellow's debilitation of his brain, but nobody calls for taking a look at these medications and see if they're causing these things.
No, and parents, I'm sure, have to be distraught, even though they did know there were some problems with their son. But the immediate reaction of the father, and he was on national television, is, if the government would just have more gun control, this wouldn't have happened. And it's hard to sort of critique a parent who just lost a son under these terrible circumstances. But why is it the government's response? I mean, there's no evidence to show that our government, if they'd have been more active taking away more guns from law-abiding citizens, that this problem could have been prevented. But what about the individuals? If a family has somebody who is unstable and mentally deranged, wouldn't they have some responsibilities too? I mean, to make sure everybody knew about it and make sure he had no access to guns. Who knows? Maybe he even got a gun from his own household, for all we know.
Yeah, it's always the government's fault. Nobody wants to take responsibility for themselves, and there you have it.
Yeah. The reaction by the president obviously was his position, and he was blunt. Let's politicize this. This is it. People have been killed, and we have to do something about it. But the other incident, a couple days after that, on the weekend on October 3rd, there were some more killings. Not our guns, but our bombs, but they were weapons, and guns and bombs are all weapons. But 22 people were killed. And at our hand, they were our bombs. Oh, well, we made a mistake.
Let's don't politicize this.
Yeah, they're not going to politicize this and collateral damage. Yeah. So this is not a big deal, and this is wartime. And it's interesting to note that it seems to be less cautious when we're in countries on how we treat the local people and what we do with weapons. If we know that we have no legal responsibility, even if a soldier goes out and murders somebody, they can't be prosecuted in the court, and has something to do with the way these agreements are made when we are leaving or when we're present in a country.
Yeah, the status of forces agreements. And, the neocons especially love to blame Obama for taking the troops out of Iraq, but it wasn't his decision to take it out. It was because the Iraqi government refused to agree to a status of forces agreement that gave U.S. troops and the private sector in Iraq immunity from prosecution. And the same thing was happening in Afghanistan toward the very end of Karzai's tenure there. He kind of grew a spine toward the end and started criticizing some of the things the U.S. military was doing there, and he refused to sign it. But I think on the day his replacement was sworn in office, he signed that agreement, giving the soldiers total immunity from anything that they might do.
And the reaction was quite a bit different. When Karzai was in and this happened, he was sort of responding to the people, and the people were outraged. It became news. The people knew about it, and Karzai would condemn it, and that, of course, annoyed the American government. But this time, they said there was essentially no complaints. It wasn't on the news. There were no demonstration, and President Ghani, who did sign this status of forces agreement, he says, well, I understand how this happened, because the livelihood, their political livelihood, depends on us being there, so they want us there. But that's once again a small number of political people who are depending on our presence there. At the same time, it doesn't bring about any peaceful resolution, because this was what we've been trying in Libya and Iraq and Syria. Every place we go, we try this, but the people don't agree with it. And even with our tremendous military might, we don't win any fights. They eventually won because the hearts and minds stay with somebody else. But Ghani obviously has to, do whatever we tell him because he might lose support, like Karzai was losing support. So I think a lot of people don't even realize that we sign these agreements where there's no responsibility.
Yeah, what a moral hazard.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what you've always said, you're all for gun control of government's guns. And this is looking at the two situations.
And if you look at these two situations, what Obama wants to do domestically is take more guns away from law-abiding citizens, more regulations, with no evidence that this is going to do very much. And a lot of people argue, and the argument goes back and forth, that concealed carry laws don't help diminish crime. But to put more restrictions on ownership of guns domestically, at the same time, what's the argument now from the neocons and others? They want more guns. They want to kill more people. They want to send more troops back in there. It's exactly the opposite. And if you have any libertarian constitutional instincts, you would say, well, the government shouldn't be doing these kind of things. You're supposed to only go to war if there's a declaration of war. So they're doing exactly the opposite of what they're supposed to do. And here we live in a nation which is overrun by laws and regulations that Congress never approved. And the bureaucrats carry guns, over 100,000 carry guns. And we weren't even supposed to have a national police force. So, but a liberal never complains about guns. I think liberals, the anti-gun liberals, are so pro-gun. It's just that they want to control the people who control the guns, so they can direct the guns from the bureaucrats, or if they want to use the guns overseas to do certain things. So I think it's all mixed up, and I'd like to see more controls of guns and bombs. And I don't think we even need a new law. All we have to do is have moral people willing to say, what right do we have to interfere in other people's business overseas? But also the Constitution. We have no legal constitutional authority. Matter of fact, most of the time we don't even get the legal authority from the United Nations or whatever, and we don't even pretend to do that. Then we just march on. Then we wonder why we have enemies who would like to attack us.
Exactly.
So It's a mess, but I don't think it's going to go away easily because this battle keeps going on, and I think that one thing that was fascinating to me was the fact that we warned Russia, don't ever kill any civilians now. The day before this happens, so then we wonder how we lose credibility, and I think we do lose credibility over that we pretend that we know so much, but we don't hear anything really in the news about reform of our foreign policy. But just listen to the media about how we can crack down on the Second Amendment. If we could just get rid of that Second Amendment, we'd have no more violence in our city. So I don't quite believe that. Would like to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. And obviously, there's a discrepancy between the way the president reacted to a domestic affair with guns at the college in Oregon versus how he reacts to the unnecessary deaths of civilians. Hospital, doctors without who are suffering from a volunteer organization that goes in and just helps people, and they don't have borders, they don't pick sides, and yet this hospital gets blown up and 22 people killed, and where is the outrage? Hopefully that will build and it will be recognized that we have responsibilities on this. It's not like it's just, this is part of collateral reaction. Anything annoys me more. Saying we kill people accidentally because we drop bombs on people we shouldn't be dropping bombs on, and a few extra people get killed, and it's dismissed, collateral damage. I'd like to see half the amount of political interest in the killing going on unnecessarily in Afghanistan when we bomb hospitals, as is put into the effort to put more regulations and restraints on law-abiding citizens to own guns in this country. We need our priorities in better order, and I think the world would be better off, certainly our liberties here at home would be better off if we had a better understanding of these two things. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Go check them out and subscribe. Now, he points out, we'll drop bombs on countries, and when we hit the innocent people, it's nothing. But, a crazy guy goes out and shoots someone, every gun owner is to blame. It's bullcrap. And, of course, more guns they can have, more people they can control, and it's just idiocracy at its finest. And let's go ahead and get into a little bit of the foreign news. One of the latest ones is interception. And not just one, multiple ones. TruthTheMedia.com, Russia intercepts American drones over Syria. Says here, October 7th. In the last week, Russian fighter jets have reportedly closely shadowed American Predator drones over Syria since the start of Russia's air campaign last week. 2 U.S. intelligence officials confirmed the uncomfortable encounter. The officials claimed that the encounters took place over ISIS Raqqa headquarters, as well as on the Turkish Syrian border near Kobani. The final encounter occurred in the northwest near the city of Aleppo. Intelligence officials said the drones were not stealth and easy to spot on radar. According to one official, although the Russian fighter jets did not attempt to shoot down any of the American drones, they instead flew intercept tracks, a term meaning that the Russians flew close enough to indicate their presence. According to NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, Russia has been pouring troops and heavy military equipment into Syria, so we have seen a substantial military buildup by Russia in Syria, both in the air with the combat planes and air defense systems, but also an increasing number of ground troops, he said. In addition to that, they have developed naval assets, a large number of naval assets close to the Syrian shores, and they continue to do so. On Tuesday, Stoltenberg expressed concern as he condemned Russia for violating Turkish airspace. We see the violation of Turkish airspace becomes more important, more dangerous, because it happens in a context where we see more fighting, more Russian military presence in Syria. Give me a second here from this other one. And most of you know, but give me a second here. Why all this is going on over in Syria, what Ron Paul was talking about, the airstrike. Here from Infowars.com, why is the U.S. refusing an independent investigation of its hospital airstrike? Was an accident. U.S. alter story for fourth time in 4 days. And this is actually from Glenn Greenwald and The Intercept. In Geneva this morning, Doctors Without Borders demanded a formal independent investigation into U.S. airstrikes on its hospital in Kunduz. The group's international president, Dr. Joanne Liu, specified that the inquiry should be conveyed pursuant to war crime investigating procedures established by the Geneva Convention and conducted by the International Humanitarian Fact-Finding Commission. Even war has rules, Liu said. This was just not an attack on our hospital. It was an attack on the Geneva Conventions. This cannot be tolerated. Liu emphasized that the need for an independent, impartial investigation is now particularly compelling given what she called the inconsistencies in the U.S. and Afghan accounts of what happened over the recent days. On Monday, we documented the multiple conflicting accounts offered in the first 3 days by the U.S. military and its media allies, but the story continued to change even further after that, as the Guardian headline yesterday noted the U.S. admission that its own personnel called in the airstrike, not Afghan forces as it claimed the day before, meant that U.S. altered stories for fourth time in 4 days. All this led Liu to state the obvious today: we cannot rely on internal military investigations by U.S., NATO, and Afghan forces. An independent and impartial investigation into what happened here should be something everyone can immediately agree is necessary. But at its daily press briefing on Monday, the U.S. State Department, through its spokesman, Mark Toner, insisted that no such independent investigation was needed on the ground that the U.S. government is already investigating itself, and everyone knows how trustworthy and reliable this person is. And you can read the rest of that at The Intercept, Glenn Greenwald, and the part I read is at Infowars.com. So we have major issues going on. Let me bring up this other article here if I can get to it. Give me a second. Okay, here's the latest. This one from nationaljournal.com. President Obama apologizes for Afghan hospital bombing. President Obama apologized Wednesday to Doctors Without Borders for the bombing that mistakenly struck an Afghan hospital over the weekend. Press Secretary Josh Earnest told reporters Wednesday that Obama called Joanne Liu, the head of the medical aid organization, to send his condolences and apologies for what the American commander in Afghanistan, General John F. Campbell, described Tuesday as a mistake. Ernest said that Obama believed it was appropriate to own up to our mistakes so that we can learn from this incident. But just one day before, Ernest had assured reporters that any apology would be contingent upon the completion of investigations by the Defense Department, NATO, and the U.S. and Afghanistan investigations. There's no denying that what has transpired here is a profound tragedy for many of the reasons that you have cited, he told reporters Tuesday. But before I go further than that, I do want these investigators to collect all the available information to try to learn exactly what happened and provide the full accounting that the president has asked for. Obama also called Afghan President Ghani to reiterate the U.S. commitment to a strong relationship with the Afghan government, Ernest said. On Tuesday, Campbell told the Senate Armed Services Committee that the bombing was a mistake. We would never intentionally target a protected medical facility. Unless you thought there were this Taliban or whatever you're fighting there now. Or just people that don't want you there anymore. Okay. Now, moving on here a little bit. I kind of want to get into alternative media. Now, many of you know that on social media, we are losing the ability to reach people. Of course, this doesn't count for these, billion-dollar corporation media outlets that can pay for all the advertising. Our reach is very little on Facebook, Twitter, and all that because of that. We don't have the funding, the subsidies that government gives these big corporations, and all the basically funding. And we really just we have a hard time trying to get past those barriers. There's groups of us, but then again, we start following the same, few websites. Oh, this is my guy right here. I hate that guy. I'm one of those people. I listen to everyone even when I disagree because, there's always common ground, and there's always the truth somewhere in the middle. So it's very important. Matt Drudge ended up at InfoWars. I guess he did a surprise visit. And there's one article here I want to cover real quick. If I can find it. Okay. And it's at InfoWars. It's also on drudgereport.com. InfoWars, Matt Drudge, copyright laws could outlaw linking to websites. Matt Drudge warned that very foundation of the free internet is under severe threat from copyright laws that could ban independent media outlets, revealing that he was told directly by a Supreme Court justice, "It's over for me." During an appearance on the Alex Jones Show, Drudge asserted that copyright laws which prevent websites from even linking to news stories were being advanced. "I had a Supreme Court justice tell me it's over for me," said Drudge. "They've got the votes now to enforce copyright law. You're out of there. You're going to make it so they're going to make it so you can't even use headlines." To have a Supreme Court justice say it to me, "It's over. They've got the votes, which means time is limited," he added, noting that a day was coming when simply operating an independent website could be outlawed. Quote, "They will end it for me, fine. I've had a hell of a run," said Drudge, adding that web users were being pushed into cyber ghettos of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. "This is ghetto, this is corporate. They are taking your energy and you're getting nothing in return." Definitely not the truth. Drudge warned that social media giants like Twitter and Facebook were swallowing up content and strangling the organic growth of independent internet news platforms. Automated news aggregators like Google News also came under fire. Google News, hello anybody there. The idiots reading that crap think there is actually a human there. There is no human there. You are being programmed to be an automated, even up to your news. A same corporate glaze over everything, said Drudge. "Stop operating in their playground. Stop it," said Drudge, asserting that people were being confined by what the likes of Facebook and Twitter defined as the internet as a result of corporate makeover of the web. "I'm just warning this country that, yes, don't get into this false sense that you are individual. When you are on Facebook, you are not. You're a pawn in their scheme," concluded Drudge. And you can read more of that or listen to the article. But you know, we get forced into using these tools, trying to reach more people, and there for a while we were becoming successful. And all of a sudden, definitely during Ron Paul's second run for presidency, for many people, that's the first that they really seen him. Definitely the younger people, and that was back in 2008. And all of a sudden you start seeing, you post a Ron Paul article, you're all of a sudden banned on Facebook. And there were actually groups started that were, you know, Ron Paul supporters banned from Facebook, or, you know, banned from Facebook for posting Ron Paul. We started really seeing that. And where they couldn't control it, they were able to do something else. You start these pages, you start a website, you know, start reaching people on Facebook, and all of a sudden we see the algorithm change, we see the layouts change, and we see this little thing pop up that says boost your post. You notice, hey, I got, you know, let's say, one of the bigger ones might have, 12,000 subscribers, and well, that article only went across 1,000 people's feed, and you go over to that boost and you give them money, and they'll let you reach a little bit more. You give them a whole bunch more money, they'll let you reach even farther. For people that already liked your Facebook page, and there were loopholes in that algorithm, which they finally fixed. Basically, if you're trying to play with the big dogs, you need to pay like the big dogs, which is nothing more than keeping the monopoly with these big corporate media outlets that do nothing but parrot what they're told to talk about and expose. And we've seen it back when Fox fired the reporters for the whole milk, cow injections, and it's really idiotic that so many people still buy into mainstream media. And you would think mainstream media wouldn't mind Drudge Report, a website that is visited a lot, and articles that are linked to drive traffic would make them mad. You wouldn't think that would happen. You'd think, hey, we're getting more traffic. That's awesome. But the problem is, he's able to sift through all the BS news. Lindsay Lohan was driving drunk. Yeah, so do a lot of people. And that shit sucks, but yeah, okay. And Miley Cyrus swung on a wrecking ball naked. Oh, okay. And this affects me how? Well, shouldn't it offend you? Well, I'm not going to watch it, therefore I don't care. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me. People do dumb crap all the time. Doesn't bother me as long as they're not harming other people. But we should care about what all these stars are doing. Why do I need to distract myself from my own life to worry about someone else's life? No, I'm good. And it just goes on and on and on. Well, you go to Drudge Report, and he sifts through all that BS and gets to really important articles that you might want to check out. And you'll have news outlets just champing Hillary Clinton and yay. And then you'll see a crap load of bad articles. Maybe sometimes in opinion sections or other sections, but stuff they don't talk about on their TV program, something that they don't put on their headline. And when Hillary's kind of getting beat up pretty bad because of her own actions, her own attitude as entitlement. So we need to do something to allow for the continuance of true media through any extent of censorship. And we have to do it also in a way that's not just reaching people that already agree with us. We like that those people do have agreements with us, and we don't expect them to agree with everything, and they're going to have issues with some things. We understand that. We can't agree on everything. But we come from a base that we share a lot of the basic ideas, but we need to reach the people that don't, and we are loyal to our loyal fans that tune in, but we have to reach the people that are still being brainwashed. And it's not that we have to convince them to agree with us. No, we have to at least convince them to explore other possibilities than what the narrative is that's given to them about history, about current events, and about the prospects that them themselves have to prosper in this world, or prosper just in happiness with how they live their lives and what they have. And the ability, if you don't believe that you are living a comfortable lifestyle because you would like a house that's not so cramped because you have kids, that you are, the master of yourself, that you have the potential to be better, and that we have to let go of the fear and explore other possibilities, to take those leaps of faith. And it's not faith in others, it's faith in yourself that you can do something that they continually tell you can't. One thing is, they continually tell you that you must go to college. But there's people out there that really should not go to college because they have that knowledge already. That's something that puts them in debt, and they don't learn anything off of a piece of paper when they really, truly have the ability to go out there and make it for themselves. And I kind of talked about this last broadcast, but it really amazes me, and I have to continually tell myself this stuff too, because, you kind of start kind of closing in this box about, where you should take things or whatever. And what you end up finding out is you look at a lot of the people that have come from nothing and not, made themselves into a star, because that shouldn't be your number one goal. What they did is followed a passion. They said, listen, this is where my passion is. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And they go, you know what? I could say that I have things to lose, but to lose the ability to live a life of my choosing should not be something I'm willing to give up for the smaller things. So I won't have someone that I know right next door to me, or I won't, just have everyone I know around me all the time. But we have to be able to let go of fear to accomplish these goals. And everyone out there, I believe, has the ability to grab a hold of their lives and just take the bull by its horns and beat it. Because we can. Ultimately, your life is in your hands, and you have to choose what to do with it. And people are like, well, you got to basically sell out to be successful. No, you don't. There's libertarians in Hollywood. They don't agree with how things are going. And I'm sure they secretly put money where their heart is. Why they don't blast it all over, TV and the radio and all that, is so they can continue to have a successful career, so they have that money to try to counter what's going on. You don't always have to be completely outspoken. A lot of times how you live your life is an example you set. And there's people out there that I know that have libertarian views. People think these people might be a little nuts. And because they're willing to be adventurous, sometimes maybe what they do is something you would go, oh, that's just stupid. Well, yeah, it might be, but it might be fun for them. But they're doing what they feel like. People are entertained by it. And they're doing one thing. They're living free. Most of the people that hate a lot of these, I don't even know, who's all libertarian. I know a few people in Hollywood that kind of have libertarian ideology just from things that they've said in interviews, not blatantly coming out and say, I believe in this, I believe in that. It's kind of how they answer questions and how they won't buy into maybe mainstream propaganda questions that are fed to them. You can look at a lot of these people that might go out and do things like what happened, the Jackass crew. But guess what? That's their bodies. They can do whatever the hell they want. And, they might regret it later, but it's choices that they make and they live free. That might not be how I choose to live my life free, but they lived it free. They chose to do things. And they did it in the right way because a lot of times they would pay for their damage and any inconvenience that was also caused from that. Reparation was always made. Now people can be like, well, they should have to even pay more because that's just ridiculous. Well, they paid more than what, just the damages were, but they always took responsibility. Maybe not as younger kids, but once they started becoming grown men, they did. And can't hate on people just because you don't like their lifestyle. What you hate on is people enforcing their lifestyle on you. Okay. Give me a second here. I had this clip I wanted to play. And this kind of feeds into what I was talking about. This is from We Are Change. The verbal jujitsu guide to hacking the Matrix.
Should we ask them what they're doing? Excuse me, I've just seen you're acting a little bit suspiciously, just making sure you're behaving yourselves?
We are always behaving ourselves. I am anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, how would someone know if they've been a victim of mind control? You tell me.
No idea.
Do you think you've been a victim? Wouldn't they? Do you think you've been a victim of mind control? Well, if you went through police training, you probably have.
This is Okradowski of WeAreChange.org here in, finally, beautiful London. Finally, it's not raining here. But one thing that you do notice about London is that a lot of people here are just stuck in this matrix, stuck following orders, not making eye contact, and just in a line, in a row, doing exactly what they're told. But there's a glitch in the matrix, and that glitch is Danny Shine. Danny is one of the most fascinating, amazing street performers, artists. What would you even use to kind of describe yourself? Because I just say hacker of Matrix.
To be honest with you, I don't really like to put myself in any particular box or label, because whatever I say, it's going to sound pretentious.
How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
You're not in the city today,
Not today. You're not in the city today.
No.
Why are there so many? Why are there so many of you lot around here?
No, it's just one of these days, sir. That's all. I remember you used to go outside St Paul's.
My megaphone.
Yeah,
I'm just about. Oh yeah.
I've been looking at your blogs actually, your stuff on YouTube. Yeah. No, but you're all right there.
Good stuff. Yeah, nice to see you. Behave yourselves.
Yeah, I will.
Now, what I really, really like about Danny is not just his activism, not just him standing outside of the crowds, but your kind of philosophy, which is very different from the status quo. I mean, you kind of engage people on a day-to-day basis, even when there's no video cameras around. You just bullhorn and you speak to people. You engage authority figures, common people. What would you say would be your kind of philosophy or approach dealing with the Matrix?
Well, I guess if what we're really looking for, if what I'm really looking for is freedom, then I have to be really, really vigilant. Because, so for example, if I was talking to you before about an incident when I went to Tesco and I took my megaphone out and started talking, and the security guy got really, really triggered and angry and probably quite frightened. Yeah, and he came up to me and said, "You have no permission to do this," started attacking me. Now, unless I sort of just take a break and disengage from him, if I don't do that, then I basically have lost my freedom and I have been drawn into his reality. Yeah, so for me, an important part of the philosophy is about my own particular state of being, and I'm still learning, massively learning, because the programming took years and years and years to get in there, and it's, I shouldn't be surprised if it's going to take a little while to get out.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times when you're dealing with authority figures, they play by certain rule set. But a lot of those rules are very ridiculous, and they don't make sense in any way, shape, or form against just the natural process that things should be. It's like, I'm being told to do this, so I'm going to do this. And a lot of times they end up hurting individuals, and they don't understand just that basic philosophy of nonviolent communication. And I kind of see you as like one of the masters of kind of nonviolent communication, because you deal with this on a day-to-day basis.
Excuse me, do you need any help? I help people who are approached by police officers. Are you all right?
Okay, I'm okay.
Great, good luck.
I'm fine.
Good luck.
What is your approach? What do you personally go through when you deal with an authority figure who's just trying to break the natural flow of things?
Well, again, it just goes back to my ability and to remember, which I often forget to do, but to remember to just cut off from it all and to count to 30, count to 60. It's the same thing, just keeping myself centered so that I don't get drawn into their world. And the thing is that they've been trained, as you saw earlier on. I believe that all training is mind control. And any organization that trains people makes them all think the same way. I, for example, in my life, amongst other things, have been trained to sell drugs. Not a lot of people know this, but I spent several years as a drug pusher. And, it's something that I haven't spoken about a lot because I'm quite embarrassed about it. I'd probably be a lot less embarrassed if I was selling things like, cannabis, or even if I was selling things like cocaine or ecstasy or anything like that. I probably wouldn't be so ashamed of what I'd done, because that's just really just doing business with someone who wants something, and it's their responsibility to actually, make sure that what they're doing with it is safe or whatever. But what I did was I went around to doctors and I sold drugs, and I was trained to think that way. I was trained to think that would be a good idea to do. And so every organization trains people to behave and think in a certain way, and a lot of them are completely unaware, as I was. But when I'm with the police, one of the things that I've learned, or with authority figures, one of the things that I learned to do once I've meditated, if I remember again and have the presence of mind, is to ask them questions, and to keep asking them questions. Because when I ask a question, when you answer my question, you are falling into a trap, really, because you're falling into my world. with assumptions, and with a question comes a whole bunch of assumptions. Like, even the assumption that I have to even answer your question. Right.
No, that's very important. And there's also a lot of self-reflection. There's also a lot of meditation. There's also a lot of inward looking into yourself and dealing with a lot of your own demons and a lot of the things that we've been doing that sometimes aren't the right things at all. And that's, the toughest thing to face. You also deal with a lot of adversity, a lot of people lashing out when you're bullhorning and breaking that kind of status quo matrix. One point that stuck out to me is what you said on the bullhorn is, people are dealing with their own problems. They don't know how to express it, and they express their anger towards you.
Yeah.
Can you go deeper into just that big statement that you made on the bullhorn?
Yeah. I mean, one of the parts of my journey, which I suspect will continue at least till I die, if not after, is the realization that actually I may be triggered by something or someone, but the moment the triggering is over, that moment, only I can really cause myself to be upset, angry, happy, or anything like that. And so I guess when I'm doing megaphoning, what I've learned, and I must tell you that my life at home, I feel a bit guilty when you sort of speak of me in such great terms, because I feel uncomfortable with that, because my life at home is not like that, and I find it hard to do this at home. But on the streets, when someone comes and attacks me, I kind of, it's so obvious to me that that's their issues, and they're just projecting their discomfort onto me. So in other words, or to put it another way, when I feel uncomfortable inside, one of the behaviors, the adult, spiritually in line behaviors, is just to feel that feeling. And that's one, and we're running around avoiding feeling uncomfortable feelings, using all sorts of things. And what I find is, if I feel the feelings, they'll eventually pass, and another feeling will come. And the same applies to good feelings. If someone comes past me on the street and gets really angry, what's going on is that something's been triggered inside of them. They don't feel comfortable. Usually there's some fear somewhere going along, right? And instead of just feeling, oh, look, wow, there I feel some fear. What's that? What's going on? You see, that would be the enlightened thing to do. Ooh, yeah. But instead of doing that, we're not trained to do that. We're trained to, right, what's the source of my discomfort? Oh, it's you, right? And off we go. Yeah. And of course, that is going to lead to a rather difficult life.
Yep.
Because everything around you can't control the stuff around you.
Yep, and a lot of people kind of self-medicate. They kind of close themselves off to any kind of true feelings and emotions in their lives, and they just go about their daily routines, and there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of unnatural kind of processes, because we're not meant to sit at a 9-to-5 job. We're not meant just to live for the weekends and get hammered and stoned and freaking zombified to the way where we don't even have to think at all in any way, shape, or form, just to do what we're told. So going through that, one of the powers that I think people forget is the power of choice, the power of their reaction, how they choose to react to certain situations. And just seeing the way you react to certain situations has been brilliant, because it's so unordinary compared to everyone else. Because naturally people would, like a cop comes up to somebody, like naturally they would obey everything that they say. But it takes the few committed individuals to say, no, I'm gonna not just obey these stupid laws and orders because it's written on a piece of paper. I'm gonna do things differently, and things should be differently, obviously, with the way we're living here. Is there anything else that you would like to expand on your work, or just tell the audience about?
The only thing I'd like to tell the audience is just to remind them that they've got a wealth of, that there is an infinite amount of wisdom that they can tap into, but the way to tap into the wisdom, I think, must involve some kind of going inside, or some kind of meditative practice, or maybe not even that, but that there is so much going on in the world, and there's so much wisdom out there, and a lot of it is accessible from within. I don't know how to explain it properly, but. And that's why I often say that, because I also feel uncomfortable, people looking up to me. Yeah. I find that very, very uncomfortable, and I don't think it's healthy for me or them, because we're all equal.
Exactly. Don't look up to any man. and the true power is within themselves. And a lot of times that power is meant through personal independent journeys, and everyone has their own independent journeys. But watching your journeys on YouTube, I freaking love it, I have to say. And I hope more people take from the philosophy and just live free and aren't afraid to get in touch with those emotions. Where can people find out more information about you, and also what's your YouTube channel?
YouTube channel, Social Experimentalist, Danny Shine on Facebook. But, you know, I would really, you know, the other thing I would say, I think one of the, I don't want to leave on a frustration, because it's all okay and it's all meant to be like it is. And it's also definitely part to do with me and my lack of organization. But at the same time, I feel like that this world, the Matrix, is so pregnant for so much fun. It's like, why are there not hundreds of people doing not exactly this, but going out there and messing around with it? It is waiting for you, everyone. It's waiting. There's so many things you can do. You can just go get a sign with, you know, if you want to put everything is okay on it, I don't care. You can put whatever you like, just an interesting sign, and just go into different places. You can start like that. Just go into your local supermarket and just start talking. Just start talking in your local supermarket louder than you normally would, yeah? Don't worry. There's nothing they can do about it. If you want my help with it, I'm happy to help people. I'd love to see more engagement, and it's such a shame because not to do it. Because it's just, I wish I had my youth back. Because I can go to town every day of the week and not spend a penny and have like an absolute ball. Why pay for entertainment when you can create it and be part of it?
Yeah, and don't let anything stop you, because the only thing that's stopping them is you. Yeah. Danny, love you. Thank you so much.
Give us a hug.
I don't know if anybody can help me. I've actually got a bit of a problem, and that is that about four hours ago, I was with a friend of mine, like a hippie type, and he gave me some lunch, and he included some mushrooms, and he didn't tell me they were magic mushrooms, and I had quite a lot of them, basically too many. And I'm feeling a bit jittery now, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's as if I feel like I'm in a multi-dimensional movie, and you guys are like the extras. Now, if there's anybody here, I don't know if that's true or not, maybe this is anybody here had experience with taking mushrooms? You, sir? You look like you probably have, haven't you? Have you ever done mushrooms? No, why not? You haven't got hold of any. That's a pathetic excuse. They grow out in the wild. I mean, really, you should be ashamed of us. Anybody here can help this man. He's never been able to get hold of any mushrooms. If there are any mushroom suppliers here, you've got, I presume, are you interested, yeah? If there are any mushroom suppliers? Yes, we've got one interested party here.
We are Change on YouTube. Go check them out, subscribe. A lot of great interviews with different people, different philosophies, but really all coming down to freeing the individual human being to be able to be the best that they can be on their own merits and without being on a leash, living free. So really should go check out a lot of his interviews. Okay. Give me a second while all this pops up. Close that window and it should be better. Okay, give me a second here. Okay, here it is. Sorry, I was looking for it for a minute. And this one I had from the Daily Mail UK. And this one, many of you already heard the story, but I'll kind of cover it again here. Drugs boss who hiked up the price of life-saving HIV treatment by 5,000% tried to do the same with a kidney pill as he vows to reduce the price but refuses to say how much. A pharmaceutical company boss who bought the rights to a drug used in treatment of HIV and increased the price by 5,000% tried a similar move with a previous employer with kidney pills. Martin Scarelli, 32, CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, had tried a similar ruse while working for Retrofin. This time he tried increase the price of Tiola from $1.50 a pill to $30 a pill. Now the controversial pharmaceutical boss has said he wants to reduce the price of Diroprim, which is the one he raised, which jumped from $13.50 to $750, but has so far refused to say by how much. The most recent scandal involves Diroprim, which is used to treat parasitic infections. Scarelli told ABC, "We've agreed to lower the price of Diroprim to a point that is more affordable and is able to allow the company to make a profit, but a very small profit." The company obtained rights to sell the drug, the only U.S.-approved treatment for toxoplasmosis. In August, it hiked the price overnight from $13.50 per pill to $750. Torres said it would use profits to improve the drug's formulation and develop new, better drugs for the infection. It also stressed that some patients can get financial aid from the company to obtain the drug. But the price hike sparked outrage from medical groups representing doctors who care for patients with HIV and other infectious diseases because Diroprim treats patients with compromised immune systems. Hillary Rodham Clinton called Turing's price hike outrageous in a tweet Monday while campaigning for the Democratic nomination for president Tuesday. She outlined a broad plan aimed at holding down the cost of prescription drugs. In one of his interviews, Scarelli was asked to address the drastic increase in price right off the bat. Well, it depends on how you define so drastically, Scarelli told Don Dollar of CBS News. Because the drug was unprofitable at the former price, so any company selling it would be losing money, and at the price it is, it's a reasonable profit, not excessive at all. Well, let's go back to the paragraph right here. Hillary Rodham Clinton called Turing's price hike outrageous in a tweet Monday. Agreed. While campaigning for the Democratic nomination for president Tuesday, she outlined a broad plan aimed at holding down the cost of prescription drugs. Wrong. Because that's not addressing the actual cause. The ability for him to price hike this medication. And that's government involvement. Again, that article is at the Daily Mail .co.uk, and it's drugs boss who hiked the price of life-saving HIV treatment by 5,000%, tried to do the same with kidney pills, as he vows to reduce the price, but refuses to say by how much. Now, let's go over here to Truth and Media, because Ben Swan put out a clip here. If I can get to it. And he addressed where some of the blame really should be. Go ahead, cue this up here.
Well, you've probably heard about the CEO of a medical company who raised the cost of his life-saving drug by 5,000% overnight. Well, since that story broke, he's been called greedy, selfish, and a monster. But is the anger against him justified, or should it actually be pointed somewhere else? This is a reality check you won't see anywhere else. Turing Pharmaceuticals CEO Martin Shkreli made headlines when he jacked up the price of Daraprim by 5,000%. That drug, used to treat a parasitic infection, it affects people with compromised immune systems, mostly affecting people with AIDS and cancer. The most shocking part of this story, when the price of one pill of Daraprim was raised from $13.50 per pill to $750 per pill. That part you might have heard, but what you might not know is the backstory. Daraprim was first brought to market in 1953. Its patent expired in the 1970s. In 2010, GlaxoSmithKline sold the rights to Daraprim in the U.S. market only. In October of 2014, Impax Laboratories then acquired the rights to Daraprim. In August of this year, Impax sold the rights to Turing Pharmaceuticals. And 1 month later, the CEO of Turing made his announcement.
Yeah, I could see how it looks greedy, but I think there's a lot of altruistic properties to it.
Altruistic?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Yeah, so one example is that this is a disease where there hasn't been one pharmaceutical company focused on it for 70 years. We are now a company that is dedicated to the treatment and cure of toxoplasmosis.
Yeah, it wasn't very convincing there, but Shkreli was eviscerated by the media and by politicians, as well as by consumer groups, who warned that this price increase would target some of the most vulnerable people in society. Well, he has now said that he will reverse the price increase, though he has not said what the new price will be.
There's no doubt I'm a capitalist. I'm trying to create a big drug company, a successful drug company, a profitable drug company.
Yeah, but make no mistake, what Shkreli is describing here is not capitalism. See, capitalism means that if the price of Daraprim is too high, which a lot of people are saying it is, then 3 other pharmaceutical companies just make their own version tomorrow. The market would then set the price based on supply and demand. The demand for Daraprim, quite frankly, isn't very high. Only a small group of people use it. But the real story here is the supply, one that's controlled by a relationship between pharmaceutical companies and the FDA. Let me explain how it happened with Daraprim. See, before Turing bought the rights to Daraprim, Shkreli made sure that wholesale markets were starved of the drug, so that when he completed the purchase of the rights, there were no extra pills floating around. Next, he set up an exclusive distribution network to block competitors from obtaining enough Daraprim to conduct clinical trials for the FDA. Then, with potential competitors blocked and his monopoly now enforced by the FDA, he was set up to gouge consumers. See, right now, even if another company had exactly the same drug, it would take at least 3 to 4 years to get FDA approval. Reality check here, the real story isn't just Daraprim. Consider this. Of the 12 drugs approved by the U.S. FDA for different cancer indications in 2012, 11 of them cost more than $100,000 per year for patients to be treated. During the 50-year period from 1965 to 2013, the monthly cost of cancer drug therapy has increased from $100 to $10,000. See, the FDA grants pharmaceutical companies patents on their drugs, but it also grants them exclusivity for up to 12 years, meaning government-enforced monopolies on the drugs they create. The FDA also slowing the release of generic drugs, which cost 60 to 90% less than what brand-name drugs cost. The average approval time of those generics, by the way, is now 26 months. So what you need to know is that the story of Daraprim shocked people, but in actuality, it's just a microcosm of the entire drug industry, where prices are skyrocketing, patients have fewer choices, and the FDA acts as the muscle to keep that system in place. Would more competition in the drug industry really change anything? Well, right now, the price of drugs increases every year. And yet, according to the Federal Trade Commission, drugs that eventually attract at least 5 competitors face a steep decline in prices. Look, it's supply and demand economics. It's the one thing that can actually fix this system. That's Reality Check. Let's talk about that tonight on Twitter.
But, of course, the economics that they teach in schools now don't teach that. That regulated monopolies are just fine. Now, we know that to definitely be wrong. Let me find this other article I had here. Maybe. Okay, I found it. I'm going to bring it up here. This is out of the Epoch Times. Says here, China dumps another $43 billion of reserves in September. Actual outflows could be far higher. First, the good news. China sold only $43 billion worth of foreign exchange reserves, most of which was in U.S. Treasury in September. The number is far lower than the $94 billion it sold in August, so it seems the country managed to stem the bleeding that reduced reserves from $4 trillion to $3.51 trillion in September. Fewer sales by China are also beneficial because they reduce the pressure on interest rates here in the United States. Maybe some of the measures to clamp down on money exchanges and overseas cash withdrawals have shown an effect. The FX outflow situation moderated in September amid clear policy signals to support the currency and restrictions to slow outflow, Goldman Sachs writes in a note. Bad news, however, is that analysts think this number is just the beginning and will eventually be revised higher as new data is released. Quote, as the People's Bank of China also intervened in the market in the past month, the foreign reserves will likely plunge again when these forward contracts mature. Commerce Bank senior economist in Asia, Zohio, told Reuters. Goldman Sachs prefers to look at bank settlement data by the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, which includes derivative transactions, but is not limited to official foreign exchange reserves. This data showed outflows of $178 billion for August, double the number reported by the People's Bank of China. Epcot Times has previously reported that the foreign exchange outflows are systemic, but China thinks it can extend and pretend the situation is going to get better soon. I think their strategy to bring that about is to stabilize the spot rate, intervene in the offshore and onshore spot markets, and hope that the economic data portrays a recovering economy and confidence comes back a bit more. Tim Condon, the Singapore-based head of research for Asia at ING Bank, told Reuters. And, you know, most of us are pretty confident that's exactly what they do here, is they try to tell you how the economy is getting better and better and blasted all over mainstream media while you watch people that were working a pretty well-paying, successful full-time job before, now working part-time jobs, getting paid pretty crappy pay at some box store. Maybe working a second job somewhere else and not having time to raise their children as they would like to. They don't have that time with them. But the economy's getting better because the rich are getting richer. So don't sit on your money anymore. Start spending. Spending is a successful economy. Well, yeah, when people have the extra money to spend, when they can confidently feel that they have enough money to be able to pay bills, pay their debts, maybe buy something, and put money back for the future. But what they want you to do is live check by check and spend all of your check and spend it on worthless crap. And we all get sucked into it. And, it's okay to every once in a while go, I work hard. I'm going to get myself something a little special, not exactly needed, but something that I've wanted. And it's not going to break the bank, but it's not going to be money that I put back. It's going to be money I'm spending right now. But we have a society where, look at things like smartphones. People will go out and spend $300, $400, $500 on a smartphone, and within maybe a year to 2 years, they're buying another expensive smartphone. And one thing, I have a 4S iPhone. Or not even an S, it's just an iPhone 4. So, updating phones to be instant. Hey, mine lets me check the news. It lets me check my emails. It lets me do my business, and also gives me a phone and a camera if need be. That's all. I don't need to be cutting edge, because it's not worth it for me to update it that much. Now, once, there's some things that I would like to have on here, because I also work on cars every once in a while, kind of on the side as a hobby, and, help people out. I would like it updated, but I kind of don't like some of the new technology that much, and kind of stuck with this one for now, because I'm not willing to spend the money to further along any activities I don't agree with. And there for a while I kind of was switching back to the flip phone for a while, but because of what I do, I tend to need the smartphone when I'm on the move and driving around. I need to be able, pull over, grab something to eat, and check email, and it definitely is helpful. And I'm not against technology. I really think that it can make... We already live this fast-paced life a lot of times, and it makes things a lot easier, but we also get inundated with all this information, the 24-hour cycle news, and it can wear you out too. And I think people don't disconnect. I definitely disconnect from technology quite a bit. Mainly when I'm doing the show, working on a website, I'm at my main computer. I do have a laptop for traveling, but I try to use my smartphone too for email and things like that. I kind of do rely on it quite a bit, but people that are grabbing information and analyzing people are the same people that are constantly attacking the rights that you and I hold. And it's not rights that they have a right to take. They are, in a way, being given a privilege to take it because people are willing to let their differences get in the way of, hey, if that was me and I wasn't harming anybody, you know, people are like, I don't like what they believe in. I don't like the guy. They're pagan. Do they harm anybody? No, they're just weird. I don't like pagans. What do they do? Oh, they light candles and incense and have weird stuff in their house. They're probably cutting people up. You think they're really... Well, our kids go over there and play every once in a while. I just don't like it. I tell them try to stay home. Their kids are a little weird. And, oh, really? Yeah. And Fred said that the pagans are terrorists and they came and grabbed them up. Think of a situation like that. What would happen if they called Christians terrorists? Well, they kind of pretty much did in things like the MIAC report. Constitutionalist Christians, Ron Paul supporters, people that have the Gadsden flag, and, you know, anybody that likes rights. Well, when they come for you and you weren't willing to stand up for anybody else, when they're not harming other people, they're just living a life of freedom and getting along, really. And, you know, if you put your differences aside, you find out you probably have more in common than not, you know. We can be indifferent. I think diversity is beautiful, really. Like, cultures, and no, not all culture is great. There's bad in all cultures. Every single culture on the face of this earth has extremely bad things that still go on. You can't stop everything that's bad. The best way to stop it is give people their freedom, give them the ability to protect themselves, give communities the empowerment to be different than the next person, to embrace the differences when you see those differences. Embrace them. I think, you know, I have my personal and beliefs, you know, spiritually, and, you know, my philosophy, but I really do. I see beauty and interest in a lot of different other, you know, spiritual religions, cultures, and I think there's a lot of different stuff that's really, really amazing. And I think we should embrace that. And, you know, I think there's been a lot of improvement in America in that. And you don't see it because of this whole race baiting, pushing going on by groups. We'll leave it at that. It's really sad because I think we were really coming far. Now it's become a thing where now it's being pushed that no matter what steps we take to try to, you know, be more accepting of people that are different, it becomes a thing where they're going, nope, you don't you don't know what it is to accept people. Well, yeah, I kind of do. I kind of accept a lot of people that I don't agree with their lifestyle. They're, straight Christians, but I don't agree with their personal lifestyle. And I don't even consider myself a Christian. I don't really consider myself anything. I have my own spiritual beliefs, but I don't use group names when it comes to that. When it comes to philosophy, libertarian, voluntarist type philosophy, not agreeing on every point that is ever pointed out in any of philosophy, but I have that leaning of philosophy. But when it comes to religion, I don't even really group myself at all in that, because I just believe all religions have been manipulated at, some level, that I see a lot of them as more of a control mechanism rather than really the spiritual enlightenment of people. And therefore, I have my beliefs, and I really kind of leave it at that. Now, I look at history, and a lot of us do this. If you know a lot of history, there's things in history that you look at as amazing. You look at Rome, running water, hot baths. They built the Colosseum. They had roads. You look at, Roman, Greek societies where, even though maybe the populace didn't have the knowledge, priests might have, to make gears turn, to move things, to make objects appear. Again, manipulation of religion. Make a statue or object appear to bleed, or, these things have been used, but it's knowledge. The amount of knowledge that ancient societies held, that a lot of people find amazing today. People grow up with the plumbing today, and they know that, well, in the medieval times, they were throwing like buckets of feces and urine out the window in the road, and the Black Plague, and they don't understand. But before that, when Rome was there, running water, hot baths, roads, Colosseum, and to understand that was before the Dark Ages. And when you look at things like the pyramids, and you look at even, you go back, as far as we can really, in civilization type cropping up of civilizations, we really had a lot of knowledge back then. Why aren't we even more advanced than what we are? You look at how technology has boomed. Look at how technology has boomed. Just in my lifetime, remembering, those Apple computers, remembering the first Windows. It's amazing how far advanced we are. You think this country is just over 200 years old? It's amazing. That we are not further along. But it's not unexplainable. if you look at history, again, like I was saying, priests and people that were in charge held the knowledge and the reality. When a subject of a kingdom would see the statue bleed when they prayed to it, or they heard a voice, or they seen something else hysterical happen, they were living in a fallacy. It was a fallacy someone else created for them, but it was a fallacy that they accepted as reality because they didn't have the knowledge. Because generations of them have been brainwashed, that they accepted that as reality. But the people that held the knowledge knew what reality was and understood what people were living in was a fallacy. Now think about that when you look at our current events. When you look at the Department of Education and how it's degraded and socialized our education system, where our children are being brainwashed. And you know, we were when we were children. We know our parents were when they were children. You know, the brainwashing and the slowly getting rid of the individual, and everything is, you are a group. Think the same, do the same, sit down, shut up, and obey. Copy what I write, copy what I tell you, believe what I tell you. Don't question. And when we see and look at ancient societies where, why didn't they bloom as fast as our technology age of modern has, just in our lifetime? Because knowledge was being hidden, and they are trying to do it time again and time again. With the internet, with what they're teaching your kids, and even with things that we get fed. We can only report the truths that we know about, but we know that there are people that are in control that do everything in their power to hide the truth from the populace in every country, every society, every culture. And once people understand that, they can start to give themselves the freedom to explore. And exploration doesn't always lead to a ultimate truth, or never really leads to ultimate truth. We don't live long enough to do that. But it does lead to more knowledge, which better prepares you for the next day. And that's one reason we need to keep the internet free. We need to fight legislation, and we need to fight corruption to allow for the freedom of expression, or freedom to produce and provide for ourselves. But ultimately, it's up to us. Are you willing to grab the bull by the horns? I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. And don't forget, there are great broadcasts coming up right after this. So stay tuned here on UCY.tv. Don't forget to support UCY, UCY.tv, and the UCY support tab. Check it out. And, you know, I'll be back Friday, and I really want to kind of cover a little bit more news Friday, but it's really important that we go further down the rabbit hole.